Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for this, which is the ninth part, or the first part of the ninth, one of our webinars we're presenting. These are customer-focused webinars, and the aim of the webinars is all about disseminating knowledge and just making sure that everyone gets the most out of the products and services on board their vessels. So we thank you for the time you've afforded us today, and we'll aim to try and make sure that what we do today gives you good value. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We're in a platform called 23, and if you look at your screen on the top right-hand corner, there's an Ask a Question function. We'd love you to share your questions. This is how I think everyone gets good value from these webinars. Please, at any point during the webinar, ask away. We would love the interaction with having some questions. So there's that function. At the bottom, there's a chat function, and if you want to make comment or chat, that's absolutely fine right the way through there. You'll notice just below the question function, there's a handouts section, and that shows 4 handouts for today, which talk about NavStation, passage planning, both interlinked for this, the first presentation. Also a link to all of the previous webinars, and also a What's New paper, which talks about what's new in NavStation 6.0. I'm going to pass over to my presentation now, and I'm going to just go through a very brief presentation. So we can see now that I'm going to introduce some of my colleagues. My colleagues today are going to be Børge Hetland, and in a change to advertise, we're going to have Stephen Richards, who's going to be talking about what's new in the new release of NavStation 6.0. As I said, this is the first part of a webinar series, so webinar number 2 in this series is to come forthcoming, and I'll discuss that later. So I'm your host for today. My name is Richard Northover. I run the UK arm of NavTOR. And what I'd like to do now is pass over to our CCO, Børge Hetland, for a brief welcome message.
Yes, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. As Richard said, this is the number 9th in a series of webinars. And I must be honest and say I didn't think that COVID should last for such a long time, but it's since that we were getting used to all these webinars. And I guess it's also the same with you as with us. We get invitations to a lot of webinars these days. I guess everyone is more or less doing webinars. So I'm very happy that all of you spend time with us today. We have actually close to 200 registered for this session, and for more than, I think it was between 25 and 30 countries around the world. So thanks a lot for joining, and also thanks a lot for putting your trust in NavTOR. We really appreciate it. I can just mention that we have now more than 7,000 vessels subscribing to our products and services, and it's also constantly growing. We are growing in both in new vessels, the new customers coming in, but we also see that more and more existing customers is buying more and more products from us, and we really appreciate that. So one question is, why are NavTOR growing? And I think it's I say we take our pride in listening to what our customers is asking for, what kind of features and functions they would like included in our platform. So, and we're also living in a world where we want things to go faster and faster. We want to use technology to help us to do repetitive and let's say things which computers can help us to. And luckily we have quite a few number of smart developers who can listen to the input from all of your customers, and also the input from our product managers who are developing this product internally. And I must also give some credit to Timo, who has been came to us directly from the sea 1.5 years ago with a lot of great inputs. So he is constantly feeding the developers also with his inputs. And this is resulting in new versions of NavStation all the time. It's already been 7 years since we introduced NavStation back in 2014. At that time, we called it the world's first digital chart table. and it will never become a finished product. We will constantly evolve and build with more functions, more modules, and more functionality. And this version we are launching today, this 6.0, it's has been taken quite some months, and the reason is mainly the GPU rendering. A lot of the development is done behind the scenes because we want to make now a new foundation so we have a strong foundation where we are now going to implement new features in the next versions. The developers are already starting on 6.1, which will have even more functionality, and we also have a pipeline for 6.2. So there is a lot of things to come in the future. And all of these things, of course, is we're doing this because we love what we do, but also we want you to become more competitive in your market. We want you to become more efficient. And of course, at the same time, we should think about safety. And also we need to make you compliant. So when you are using NavTor on board, you can trust that you are according to the rules and regulations. So thanks again for joining us today, and looking forward to see you next time in part 2 of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Børge. Interesting to hear a little bit of history about NavTor and also the development of the NavStation. I'm going to pass back to my presentation very briefly and unapologetically, because I'm going to present again the e-navigation suite for NavTor. And I do this at each of the webinars, and I have done so throughout. But by doing this, I'm reinforcing the base of how NavTor do what we do. The shore-based nav cloud, or the database, is the center of everything we do. We pass information out to the vessel, to the NavBox, the NavBox being the only piece of actual hardware we put on board the vessel. That NavBox distributes to front of bridge, to the ECDIS, all the updates, all the chart permits, and also to back of bridge, to our NavStation, our digital chart table. Those, of course, communicate changes back to the database. So the NavBox is a two-way communication. And once a resident changes in the nav cloud, these can be accessed by all of our software that is external. So the new NavFleet, which is fleet optimization and fleet overview. NavTracker has always been a shore-based situational awareness and management tool, and it gets better and better. And NavTV, your view on your fleet in your reception area. So all of our products are powered by the same data in real time. Absolutely critical to the way we go forward. So now, without further ado, I'm going to pass across and show you or introduce you to Stephen Richards. He's presented before in our webinars, but he's going to be talking about NavStation, and we call it 6.0, this release, and it's what's new. So over to you, Stephen.
Yes, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. I'll just introduce myself. I'm Stephen Richards. I've been an area sales manager for NavTor since 2015. I do know some of the names on the list. So yeah, I'm based in the European countries, but hopefully we open up and we get to meet at an exhibition somewhere around the world shortly. So from now, what I'll do is I'll switch over to a couple of slides. I won't bore you too much. I'll kind of discuss what we'll go through and then switch to a live demonstration of the features we'll talk about this week. So I'll just flick over to my PowerPoint slide. So what I'll be talking about mainly is the NavStation 6.0 software. When we get into the passage planning module, will be in the next webinar because it was a bit too much information to go through. So in regards to the NavStation 6.0, what we needed to look at is there are some changes within the NavStation software and the passage planner, which could affect your internal company procedures. That means we haven't just kind of gone and updated everything. We need to contact you guys, let you know it's available, discuss with you what needs to happen. In cooperation with your account manager. So if you haven't heard from your account manager yet, please contact them, but you definitely should have by now. We will work out the rollout to your fleet. And then once it's approved, it's actually from there, nothing much needs to happen from your side. The update patch is approximately 27 megabytes. We've got the system ready so that we actually don't need administrator rights for the PCs and everything. So once it's agreed with your company, we can just send the update patch to the NavBox on board. Then that will update itself, and then the next time the crew do the restart the NavStation, it will be prompted to do the upgrade to 6.0. So it's all fairly straightforward once we have the agreement to roll out. So what's new in 6.0? Berger already touched on the GPU rendering. So that means the software will be using the graphics card of the computer to draw charts instead of the processor itself. So what that means for you is improved pan and zoom functionality. So you may have been aware of some grey patches on the charts as you zoom across or pan across the charts quite quickly. This will increase, this will remove the grey areas and just make it a better user experience for you. There is a security update within the software. So cybersecurity is something that NavToor takes very seriously, and I think we're top of the game in regards to cybersecurity, but we are very proactive in this. So for those of you interested, the update here is moving away from SOAP APIs and using REST APIs, which is just using the latest technology to make sure it's the most cyber resilient for that. So we're just using different APIs for the way the NavStation communicates with the NavBox on board. So yeah, with that one, sorry, user layers. So this is a great new feature. I know we did cover it in a previous webinar, but this is actually, that was for our future releases, and this is now available in 6.0. So user layers, it's come from a lot of requests from customer feedback. This gives you the ability to draw objects on as a layer over the ENC within the NavStation there. So quite a good feature, and I will show you that one shortly. Excuse me. Set passage plan as active. So this is joining all of our softwares together. So when you have a passage plan, when you get the on board, they can actually, once it's an approved passage plan, they can set as an active passage, set the speed order and the loading conditions, and then shoreside within our NavFleet software. So that's our vessel monitoring software. That actually no further action needs to get taken. That's automatically, that information's displayed within the NavFleet service on board. We have a nice new distance measuring tool, which I think that's self-explanatory, but I will show you that in the software shortly. And then there's a couple of other changes which, even if you're not using the passage planner, you may notice that there's some changes there. So the displacement of the vessel used to be in the vessel configuration page of the software. That's now moved to the actual passage plan. You're now also able to set the departure and arrival displacement there. So that will allow for more accurate squat calculations across your journey. So yeah, I think from there, what I'll do is just switch over to my NavStation for an actual demonstration. So yeah, I will try not to go into passage planning at all, because as I said, that's split into the next webinar. But I will just have to show you where I mentioned the vessel particulars. There used to be a displacement section in here, so that's now removed if you're changing from 6 up to 6.0. And where that has gone is if I actually open up my passage planner, you'll see on the left-hand side here, I can set the displacement on my vessel from the departure port and the displacement at my arrival port. So yeah, that's just where those two have moved. Additionally, we spoke about setting a voyage as active. So if I go to my approved passage plans, so these are the ones I've done the full passage plan for, I can then onboard the vessel, confirm what my actual departure time was when I've left, my loading conditions, and then my speed order here. So when I do that on board the vessel, shortly afterwards, they get the information on land for the NavFleet software. So that's that's all automated in that section there. So I'll now kind of pop out. I did brush into the passage planning section here, but they were kind of actual upgrades within the NavStation software itself. So apart from that, we have, you should notice up in the top right hand corner, I'll just move the chart a bit, there's a nice little rule here. If I click on this one, I can now be doing distance measuring. So I'm just left mouse clicking this, and you can see that the total distance comes up here. I can obviously quite easily change where that's going. So we've got the distance measuring tool that's now integrated here. I'll just, since I'm talking about the tools, I'll show you the electronic range and bearing lines. This should already be in, this was introduced in an earlier version, but I'll just let you know that it is here. If I left click on that, left mouse clicking doesn't do anything because I'm panning the charts, but if I right mouse click here, I can set the origin of the range and bearing, and then if I right mouse click again, I have the option to fix it there, or I can then set a second one, and then you can obviously do another range and bearing line. So yeah, that's quite a nice function there as well. Apart from that, I will show you the user layers on the charts. So we have the icon down here, or obviously if we go back to our desktop here, we've got user layers. This, once you have 6.0, should already be in there. It's not a service we're charging for it. It's included in the NavStation software. So yeah, I now have user layers. I can group them into areas or whichever I'd like. So I'll just use English channel as an example. And if I come in, I'll just draw in a line for the Dover ferry, I think. So I can just pop my line in here, title it whatever I'd like. Oops. Select what color I'd like it to be, also what line type. And then, yeah, I can just have it as set the danger level at the highlight. There is a help function here. So if you do need to read up on it, you can click the help function, and then this actually pops you up to the exact correct page out of our 342 page document within NavStation, so the NavStation manual. So it does, it's good how it takes you to the exact spot. But if I save my object, and so now I have my user layer here. I can then also, just as another example, within the English channel, I can put a no-go area over Goodwin Sands. So I'm just left mouse clicking here. Red is a no-go area. Cross hatchet, and then the danger highlight is an alarm area. And click on save. So that's just drawing in any of my objects and that over there. I don't have too many saved in here, but as you can see, when you get a lot, we do also have a search function. So if I type in ferry, it will come in and go through and be able to manage all of my objects that I'm drawing on. So yeah, that's the main features for this. A lot of it does coincide with the passage planning. As I said, we'll go further into detail with the next webinar, where I think Timo will take us through a lot more of the functionalities. But that's kind of the upgrades that we have for 6.0. So apart from that, I think I'll switch you back to Richard, and he'll take you on from there, and I'll be around for questions later.
I'm going to take you a little bit back to my presentation for a summary of what we've just seen today. So if I can pass back to my presentation now. There we are. So really what Stephen's discussed today is the improvements we're going to see in NavStation 6.0. Image rendering improvements, and this is considerable. You're not going to see the lagging perhaps that was resident occasionally in the past because of the different way that the system's using it. The new user layer, which you've just seen, the security update, and that's critical. We're continually improving the cybersecurity of all our products, so that's a really critical improvement. And the ability to set the passage plan as active, to link all of our products together. A strange statement maybe, but everything we do is driven by you, our customers. So by requests, by interaction, by making sure what we do fits with your requirements. Absolutely, what we do is driven by your suggestions, as Birger touched on before. So moving on for webinar number 2 in this series, we decided to split it because the discrete upgrade, which we're calling version 3 of the passage planning, is quite a significant upgrade. So this is separate for a start, but also is going to take a reasonable amount of time. So slightly longer webinar next time for part 2. That's due to be on June the 2nd. We're talking about the overhead clearance. That's a new function in the passage planning. Under Keel, clearance improvements, that's very significant improvements there. We'll talk more detail about the displacement being moved from the general settings to the individual passage plan, and that's the reasons behind that move. And we'll talk about the added options and different ways of picking water depth. So that's to come, a sneak peek of what's to come on the 2nd of June. And we do hope you join us for that one.